FFP is broken. FFP doesn't work. FFP is ruining the transfer market and the game. You keep telling me these things. And frankly, it does seem like we are reaching peak FFP fast, doesn't it? Today is D-Day in FFP lunacy because it's June the 30th. We know the kind of footballing financial year and contract year and whatnot runs from July the 1st. So what we're getting in the transfer market, well, actually, let me tell you what we're not getting. We're not getting teams trying to really sensibly structure the growth of their organisations and their teams over multiple years, bringing players through and adding one here and selling one here to raise money in a highly strategic fashion. No, we're seeing teams panicking, passing players around between them, particularly academy players where obviously they go on the balance sheet as a 0 in and 100% profit out. Oh dear. It's an interesting watch, let's just say, and probably not what the transfer market and the transfer window particularly is supposed to represent. But it is what it is. This is the situation we're in with FFP, and the situation was that last season, as Forest and Everton points deductions in the Premier League, none in the EFL for P&S last season. I think a little bit ahead of the curve there, the EFL, in terms of most of the infractions happening a few years ago. But Leicester were in the EFL, and had they been in the Premier League, they pretty much certainly would have got a points deduction. We think the breach was confirmed, but a jurisdiction issue. More of that probably as we go through the winter. The teams, though, we're really interested in at the moment, trying to avoid an FFP breach, seem to be Newcastle, Chelsea and Aston Villa. And if you look over there, there is Elliot Anderson, 10 Premier League starts last season, who appears to be heading to Nottingham Forest, and a reported number, £35 million. Now, okay, telephone numbers, rumours, I don't know whether that's true or how that'll be structured. I can't see the deal memorandum. Neither can you guys probably, but I think what we would all agree is A, it would be nice if clubs could keep their young players and not use them to not breach rules that don't really appear to be working. And B, that fee. Oh my God. I mean, Nottingham Forest, I think that would be a club transfer record. I know Forest come into this conversation, and there's another side to this because I've had plenty of sensible conversations with sensible Forest fans who say, look, I get it, we spent big, but what were we supposed to do? We literally didn't have a team in terms of all the loanees when they came up. Many, many wrinkles to this issue. I do want to talk about Archie Gray as well, a player who is the crown jewel at Leeds United in terms of an amazing young player who's played plenty more football than Elliot Anderson has, or a couple of the players I'm about to mention when it comes to Aston Villa and Chelsea as well. Leeds have not breached FFP. Their position looks all right, and it looks like they are going to have to sell Archie Gray whilst we have these teams in the Premier League kind of passing players in between them who have all breached FFP or are in fear of breaching FFP. Now, don't mischaracter this as an attack on any of the clubs, because I do happen to think it's probably the rule that's really, really silly. And let's not be naive enough to think, and this came into the Leicester conversation last year, that any football club is just going to hold their hands up and say, oh, okay, the rules don't particularly work, so we'll set a great example to everyone else. No, everyone does what's best for their club. But a penny for the thoughts, whilst Archie Gray, I think they've turned down Brentford now, but Spurs are coming back in. Penny for the thoughts of those Leeds fans when they haven't breached, and we're talking about teams, and Leicester beat Leeds to an automatic promotion place last season. Talking about teams who are banking that sweet £100 million a year Premier League revenue, who all have breached. Let's talk about Chelsea and Aston Villa, where there's been, we could bring Everton into this slightly as well. There's been some interesting dealings going on. Look, Iain Mattheson, Chelsea to Aston Villa. I don't think anyone's got a problem with that. He got to the Champions League finally. He was brilliant for Burnley, wasn't he, in the Championship. He's been out on loan at Dortmund. Fine. That appears to all make sense as a deal. But there are other deals going on here where Amari Kellyman has gone from Aston Villa to Chelsea in the other direction for £19 million. He made 35 minutes, not 35 appearances, 35 minutes worth of appearances in the Premier League last season. I have to be careful what I say here because we don't want to accuse anybody of doing anything that they're not doing and speak inappropriately, but it does appear that, what language can I use? Players are being passed around and money is being put on the balance sheet in terms of these young players, doesn't it? Out from Aston Villa, Lewis Dobbin comes in to Aston Villa, goes from Everton, and Tim Irogbenham, who we had in the Championship, was at QPR on loan, wasn't he? He's gone to Everton from Aston Villa, and we think essentially it's not a swap deal, two £10 million deals have been done there. If FFP hadn't been an issue, that would just be a swap deal. But of course, both clubs can put £10 million incoming on their balance sheet against players again who are zero in terms of the spend because they are youth team players. I want to know your thoughts on this because this just feels so silly, doesn't it? And these young players, Elliot Anderson, Archie Gray, Iain Martson, Amari Kellyman, Lewis Dobbin, Tim Irogbenham. I don't want to get too soppy about this. This is their dream career. They have clawed their way to get to Premier League clubs. And I'll get comments saying, okay, Ben, well, they're gonna make a load of money. Yes, they are gonna make a load of money. Fine. We get that. They have found their way into a Premier League academy, which is not an easy thing to do. But is this best for their career? That they're pawns in a kind of game in order to get under your £105 million Premier League losses. And then underneath all of that, what about Leeds and what about Archie Gray, where I'm using Leeds here as the kind of poster boy for people who haven't breached. And we can talk about all of these clubs where you've got Newcastle who appear to have tried their best. They have more money than God since the ownership changed, but they simply can't keep up, can they? Chelsea, hold whatever view you can. They seem to go a bit crazy and try and find a little wriggle room with the long contracts and whatnot. Hasn't worked. What we'll say about Chelsea, they have been incredible over the years at producing young players and selling them on for big money. Give them their dues there. Aston Villa, amazing club, amazing history, came down to the Championship, loved covering them in the Championship, have come up under wealthy new owners, and it appears, even though Villa themselves sold the crown jewels, their young player in Jack Grealish for £100 million, it seems that even in spite of doing that, they are struggling to compete as well. So what's the point in these FFP rules? They were brought in to protect clubs from irresponsible spending and irrational owners and make sure that no clubs go under. You tell me whether this is working or it's not working. It doesn't really seem to be an issue right up the chain, does it? Was it brought in for fairness and competition? Because if it's linked to the money that's coming in terms of TV, well, it doesn't work, does it? Because all of the massive cliff edges mean that a Champions League team makes way more money than the Premier League team, who makes way more money than the parachute team, who makes way more money than the Championship team, and run that on down the pyramid until you get to the National League, which has gone a little bit Wild West and is a little bit concerning, where they don't have the kind of rulings of the Premier League and the EFL. What is your view on this? Let me know in the comments. Let's try and get some solutions here in terms of how we can improve this, because this just seems a bit ridiculous if youth team players' careers are being disrupted whilst Premier League clubs pass them about to try and get to minus 105. Minus 105 in itself is just ridiculous when you even say it, that a business can lose that much money and be in the kind of 20 most successful in this country. I don't know. And then what about the kind of Leeds United side of it, where they haven't breached and their crown jewels is about to be taken away from them, we think, whilst everyone else is, call it what you like, I'm going to keep on the passing around players above them. Thoughts in the comments. Are we reaching peak FFP fast?